100 years ago, 1 year ago, as I record this, September 2021, this video game was released, Tales of Arise. After playing through it a year ago, I immediately began work on my review. I had it written and it was ready to go into full production. And then the forces of time and moving and laziness and work and more work and other factors stopped me from ever filming it. Over time, I have edited the script, I've changed the cold open numerous times, and here we are now. This is basically my way of stealth saying that it was my plan the whole time. I had always intended to wait for an entire year to film my review of Tales of Arise, and I totally 100% planned to film it in a hotel in Panama City Beach, Florida. It's just so thematic. Yeah, and not because I have a bunch of scripts that have sat and piled up for quite some time now because of the combined forces of everything that I just mentioned, and this is just one that I felt I could get done in a reasonable amount of time, and I just happened to be in a hotel in Florida when I could record it. No, it's definitely not that. Definitely not that. Anyway, let's talk Tales. I love the Tales franchise. I played Tales of Zestiria about 7 years ago and I just fell in love with it. For those unfamiliar, the Tales games are a series of JRPGs in which you gather a party of eccentrics to fight in a small-scale story that usually balloons into world-ending calamity that only your party is equipped to handle. Tales of Arise changes the formula a little bit by having the stakes be pretty high right from jump. You play as a slave that strives to topple not only his oppressors, but those of an entire planet in the span of about 2 weeks. For a task of similar difficulty, it took me 1 year to film myself sitting in a hotel speaking words into a camera. I had to traverse Florida. As per usual, the main character gathers his obligatory group of oddballs, taking part in a world-spanning quest to beat up the bad guys and stop a god monster from destroying all of the everything. So it's still very much a Tales game. And what struck me about Tales of Arise in the beginning was just how different it looked from other Tales games. The franchise has always been fantastical, with a lot of bright colors and an isekai anime feel with its aesthetics, which I guess is just fantasy. I'm sorry, most fantasy anime these days are just isekai, so... Oh, and for those who don't know, isekai is a Japanese word. I've been learning Japanese on the side, and it means oversaturated. I may have made that joke in another video, but I don't care. It's evergreen. Even the darker games in the Tales series, like Berseria, still held to that design philosophy. So it's striking that the first country you're in Tales of Arise is one of fire. It's barren and desolate and brown, and it's light on vegetation, high on rocks, and what little does manage to grow is often on fire. So seeing a bunch of anime characters in that setting feels like a bit of a clash. Like you have a woman with pink hair and a battle dress, and a man with white hair and an iron mask. And, you know, the people of this world, they're slaves wearing rags of burlap, so the belts and scarves and battle dresses stand out a little bit, but that's why they get to be the main characters. I've often said, if somebody has the ability to accessorize, that's what makes them a protagonist. Now, of course, as you traverse the world, the design aesthetic does return to the more familiar territory for the Tales series. There's large fields and canyons and mountain ranges, lakes, and beautiful vistas for you to explore. And like I said, it's not that the opening bit of barrenness was bad, it was just striking. Striking's not a bad thing, striking's a good thing. It's memorable. In Tales of Arise, you play as Alphen. He starts the game as an amnesiac in an iron mask that doesn't even remember his own name and is simply referred to as Iron Mask. If you play the game in English, his voice actor is Ray Chase, who also plays Bruno Bucciarati in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. The characters are not similar at all, but I was a little disappointed that Alphen never refers to any of the slave drivers as a Katso. The planet he lives on is called Dana. Alphen, not Ray Chase. Ray Chase lives on Earth, by my estimations. The Danan people are enslaved by their planet's next-door neighbors, the Renans, and as Alphen ends up in a resistance group, he starts to gather his party members, and he makes it his mission to overthrow the different Renan rulers that lord over each of Dana's elemental-coated continents, starting with his own fireland of Calaglia. The Ice World, Grass World, and Darkness World, we'll take care of that later. That's work for Wednesday. Today's Monday. We got other shit to do. Now pass the curry, obligatory overpowered child character. A major theme of this game is freedom. The game has a lot to say on free will, the roles of oppressors and the oppressed, how systems designed to abuse people get put into place, but more importantly, how they stay in place. I was initially worried about this because the very, I can't believe how many varies still manages to undersell it, but very heavy topic of slavery just didn't seem like something that Tales was equipped to handle. Like, don't get me wrong, the franchise has had good stories in the past with some strong messages, but I don't know, this just seemed like a monumental undertaking. Slavery is a massively complex and sensitive topic, and it would take a lot of work and writing prowess to handle it with the care and tact needed for a fantasy RPG that essentially boils down to powering up a fire sword and eating curry by the truckload. Now, don't get me wrong, if you want to talk about the nature of oppression and why human beings can be so cruel to one another, that's a perfectly fine and commendable story to tell, one that's worth telling and should be told, but if you're gonna do it, you better have something sturdy to say, and Tales of Arise dabbles in a sort of gray area that I wasn't really impressed with. So it does call out slavery as being evil, so minimal points there because duh, but my problem is with the explanation that it gives for slavery's existence. It gets invented in this game. Like it was a product. Like you find it on QVC, like new from Vera Wang. It's the slavery collection. Jesus. I got some splaining to do, and I have to get into spoilers because the world-ending calamity that the story ends up moving toward does incorporate the slavery storyline, but it eventually usurps it completely, which I think was a misstep, and I kind of need to explain some of that. So seriously, gonna be getting spoilery. Skip to this part of the video if you don't want to hear it. Or better yet, just play the game. It's been a year. It's been out for a year. Go play it. It's good. I like it. All right, good. Now that the Philistines are gone, I think it's a bit of a cop-out to say that the ancient evil space monster is going to eat the planet, and its rage and doomed existence is what caused it to create slavery. That's right. The big evil monster that you're going to punch to death with swords at the end of this game to orchestral backing created, made, invented slavery. Like it was tinkering in a workshop of cruelty. Huh. In the beginning, I actually liked what they were doing with the slavery stuff, which is a wonderful thing to hear out of context. I'm sure that'll never come back to haunt me. He says as if this video will ever top 30 views. At first, it was down, dirty, and no nonsense. Like I said, Calaglia was a place of fire, rocks, and rags. There's one group of people enslaving another group of people because they wanted to sit atop the proverbial food chain and have the menial labor be done by those they deemed beneath them. And on top of that, that menial labor only ever served a select few up at the tippy top off screen who were only interested in their own personal gain. And this system, though cruel, became accepted by everyone involved because, well, for the oppressors, they were given that right by their leadership, and for the oppressed, it was all they'd ever known. And I kind of dig that, but once we start getting into the twists and turns of the story, that's when it starts to lose me. For one thing, it tries to do a both sides whataboutism sort of thing. Like, yeah, sure, the Renans are enslaving the Danans, but some of the Danans are racist against the Renans, and also some of the Renans are actually very nice people, and some of the Danans are assholes. Like, they call the Renans bright eyes because they have glowy anime eyes. So it's like, sure, I might be mugging you and stealing your money, land, and firstborn child, but you called me a weeb. And sure, Henry VIII might have been extreme for chopping off Anne Boleyn's head, but she said he had a little dick. They were both wrong. What was I talking about? Oh yeah, slavery. It turns out the Renans are enslaving the Danans to harvest energy from their planet, and the most elemental-themed energy gathered by one of the five lords would be deemed the winner of an event called the Crown Contest. This winner would then be named the Sovereign, who would go on to rule the planets of Rena, Dana, and the satellite planet of Lenegus all by themselves. What a prize. But it turns out the Renans only live on Lenegus. None of them have ever even seen their homeworld of Rena, because it turns out Rena is a dead planet. Nobody lives there. The only thing left is the planet's dwindling energy, which has obtained sentience. And this sentient energy is equated to an animal that's been backed into a corner and is lashing out. But even in that dwindled state, it is still smart enough to enslave a completely separate race of creatures called the Helganquil. Now, the Helganquil, and this is wild, are the original natives of Rena. The planet's energy took over their feeble little minds and forced them to go to Dana. Another planet, mind you. This is advanced slavery, okay? Okay, they're not building tombs for kings. These guys had to start a fucking space program. They did the most incredible thing a species could ever aspire to accomplish under the orders of kidnapping the Danans and turning them into a whole new species of people called the Renans that could go and live on the manufactured planet of Lenegus. The Helgankul then enslaved these new Renans into enslaving the remaining Danans so they could take part in the crown contest. Again, sentient planet energy enslaved a race of creatures to create a new race that they enslaved into enslaving their original race. By my estimation, animals that are backed into corners lashing out usually bite, scratch, or hiss, not create multi-generational slavery-themed pyramid schemes. Or maybe they do. I don't know. Maybe I missed that episode of Animal Logic. So what is the energy's end goal then? Why go through the 7 degrees of enslaving bacon? Well, you see, Dana's energy is still alive and well. You know, thriving, vibing, even as its citizens get turned into literal goo. Oh yeah, that's right. What did you think we were harvesting here? Dirt? Vegetables? Curry? That should be curry. It's practically the major fuel source of this world. No. Soylent Green is people. So Rena's energy was hoping to merge with Dana's to keep itself from dying. And, you know, I was a bit miffed by this, you know, because I liked the personal story of a slave shoving a fire sword up the tender butthole of his oppressors, becoming a symbol of hope for the whole world, that they may one day skewer the colons of those that lord over them. Like I said earlier, it does get incorporated into the world-ending calamity, which is good, I guess. It's what you should do, so it doesn't feel like a waste of time. But that plot I just told you is pure banana bread. Like, I love it. I think those twists are great, but it's just so wacky and bizarre that I felt like it lessened the impact of the smaller scale, more personal and serious parts. But one thing you'll notice on the cover of this game here is that it says PS4, which means it is, in fact, a video game. And in spite of some missteps that I think exist in the plot, I did like this video game as a video game that one would play as a video game. I thought the combat was fast-paced, and racking up combos, inputting commands quickly and efficiently feels really good. You're constantly getting new abilities and weapons, equipment, and skills that make you stronger. I did feel like I leveled up maybe a little too slowly in the mid-game, but it ended up being fine. And I think the only reason I even noticed it was because the game was very silly about how it doled out side missions. Like, don't let me accept the quest to kill the level 46 monster when I'm level 4. That's just bad mission progression, and there's a built-in system. Just don't have that quest marker appear until I have completed a mission where I would be at a reasonable enough level to conquer that. That's just the only reason I bring it up is because it was a continuous thing in the game. It was a consistent problem. But as I said earlier, I did love this game, and one of the main reasons for that is because of the design. Like, I am a sucker for big fucking thing design, which is the technical term. I went to video game school, it's what we called it, and that's when you're exploring an environment and there's something huge in the distance off screen that draws your eye to it. Like Journey is a great example of a game that does this really well. Like, there's always something big to be moving toward, be it a mountain formation or a giant set of floodlights, castles, or even the planets in the sky. It's a very pretty game. And while I'm talking about the visuals, I want to address the animations. The Tales series has been using the same animation sets for years now, so there are character movements and quirks that I saw in Tales of Arise that are the exact same as they were in Tales of Xillia. And that may bother some people, but it doesn't bother me one bit, because I don't think that the simple, idle animations of ancillary characters are where the team needs to put their focus. Ufotable did fun animations for some cutscenes, and more of the work was put into the design of the world and the characters, or if we want to talk about animation specifically, more time was put into the intricacies of the battle animations that the player is going to be seeing more frequently. And I also say that so I can head anyone off for yelling at me for being hard on Pokemon Legends Arceus for its bland animations. These are two separate situations. This is apple gels and oranges gels. Tales put the time where it mattered most. Legends Arceus is bland across the board. They are not the same. Overall, at the end of the day, when all is said and done, I really like this game. I think the story had a couple of hiccups, but none so major that I think people should avoid it entirely. If you like the Tales franchise, you'll feel right at home here. You'll appreciate the quality of life improvements that the series has made, even since Berseria. Is it my favorite Tales of game? No, I still think that honor goes to Zestiria. Before you comment and say, no, Vesperia is the best, or Symphonia. I haven't finished those yet, so leave me alone. Even with that said, I did like this game enough to where I would love to see a Berseria situation happen with it. Let's see another game with new and returning characters set in this same world. I'd love to see what they come up with, considering they ended racism in this one. And if you avoided the spoilers, that's a real contextless nugget for you, isn't it? So that's all I've got. If you like this video, prove it. Like, comment, subscribe to the channel. Links in the description will lead you to my books, my Patreon, and social media pages. Support me if you can, love me if you must, and have a wonderful day. Now I'm gonna go into the Gulf of Mexico now, which is really why I came here. Not to talk about, I didn't even bring the PlayStation. I brought this because I knew I would need it as a prop. Goodbye.